Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating world where ancient faith meets modern technology. It all comes from one single, pretty powerful piece of online content, a digital prayer shared as a spiritual guide for one of life's most profound hopes, the hope to conceive. It's a question a lot of us end up facing at some point, right? When the usual paths, the conventional answers, just aren't enough. Where do you go? Well, people start searching for hope in new spaces. And what we're seeing today is how that search is happening more and more online, creating these incredible digital communities all built around shared faith. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at where this digital prayer even came from. Then we'll get into the personal story behind it, which is what gives it so much power. After that, we'll walk through the ritual itself, the prep, the prayers, and the special items involved. And finally, we'll zoom out and talk about what this all means for faith and technology today. Okay, so first up, where does a practice like this even pop up? Well, it comes from a place you might not expect, a digital community built around faith, where people feel safe to share their deepest struggles and offer spiritual guidance to one another. Now, this is really, really important to get straight from the start. We are not looking at medical advice here. This is not a recipe. What we're actually examining is a faith-based practice that's shared within an online community. The video is presented as a spiritual guide, a testimony for people navigating the incredibly difficult journey of infertility. And this is what makes this so compelling. It's not just a list of instructions, it's a deeply personal testimony. At the very heart of this ritual is one woman's story of her own long and difficult journey. 12 years. Just think about that for a second. The creator of this video says she waited 12 years for a child, and this was after she already had other children. So that number, it isn't just a number. It really represents this profound, long period of waiting and hoping and just enduring. And this quote, wow, it just really captures the emotional weight of that long wait. She talks about facing this immense social pressure, getting hurtful comments, sometimes from the very people who were supposed to be her support system. You can just feel the deep personal pain that pushed her to find a spiritual solution. So, and this is the key, right? This isn't presented as some abstract theory. For her, it's a lived experience. She says this ritual was passed down to her by an elder, she followed the steps, and she truly believes it's the reason she became pregnant. And now, she's passing that story on through her channel, basically creating a digital chain of hope. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the process she describes. It's a really structured 3-day ritual, and it all starts with some very specific spiritual and physical preparations. The very first phase is all about creating a state of purity and focus. It starts with bathing and then performing the Islamic ritual washing, which is called wudu. After that, you offer a special 2-unit prayer, specifically with the intention of asking for something you deeply, deeply need. And this whole thing has to be done in a quiet, private space so you can really concentrate. Now, before we get to the core of the ritual, there's a key term we need to know: surah. A surah is simply a chapter of the Quran, which is the central religious text of Islam. And knowing this is absolutely essential, because the next step is all about reciting specific chapters. So with all the preparation done, the heart of the ritual really begins. And that is the recitation of very specific parts of the Quran. This isn't random at all. It involves chapters and verses that are believed to hold special significance for this kind of prayer. So after reciting those formal passages from the Quran, the ritual then shifts to something much more personal. This next phase is all about a type of prayer called a dua. So what is a dua exactly? Well, if reciting the Quran is about speaking God's words, a dua is when you speak your own. It's a direct, personal, heartfelt conversation. It's that moment where you just pour out your heart and make your very specific request. And you can just hear the raw emotion in the words of this dua. This part of the prayer really captures that deep feeling of longing and hope. It's a direct plea for a miracle, a request to have this one specific dream fulfilled. But it's not just that one long prayer. The ritual also involves this really intense repetition of shorter prayers. So key phrases like, "Lord, do not make my womb barren," are repeated 100 times each. The idea here is to create this deep, almost meditative state of focus and prayer. All right, so the final part of this ritual is where the spiritual really becomes physical. It involves 3 simple but really symbolic items that are meant to become infused with all of those prayers.
The three items you need are a cup of water, some honey, and an odd number of dates, which is a significant tradition in Islam. These are all items that are mentioned for their benefits within the faith.
And here's where it all connects. That whole recitation process we just talked about, the chapters from the Quran, the repeated du'as, is all done while holding the water, honey, and dates right up close to your mouth. The belief is that your breath actually carries the words of the prayer, blessing these items.
After all the prayers are finished, the items are consumed in a very specific order. A spoonful of the honey is mixed into the blessed water. Then, the dates are dipped into that honey-water mixture and eaten. And finally, the rest of the water is drunk. It's like you're internalizing the blessing.
And this isn't just a one-and-done thing. The creator really stresses that this entire sequence, from the ritual bath all the way to consuming the blessed items, has to be repeated for 3 days in a row. It's all about showing commitment and devotion. So that's the ritual, step by step. But the bigger story here, the really fascinating part, isn't just about the how, it's about the where this all happens. So let's zoom out a little and think about what it means for a practice like this to be shared and found on a global platform like YouTube. What we're really seeing here is ancient tradition meeting brand new technology. I mean, a ritual that was once passed down in person, from an elder to someone younger, is now being shared with thousands, maybe millions of people online. Platforms like YouTube are becoming these virtual community centers for support and for sharing deeply held spiritual beliefs. And this really leaves us with a big question to think about, doesn't it? As these very private, almost sacred rituals move onto these very public platforms, how does that change faith and community in the future? What this digital prayer ultimately shows us is that no matter how advanced our technology gets, it's so often used to serve one of our most ancient needs, the search for connection, for answers, and for hope.